The Auburn Tigers are 40 minutes away from punching their ticket to the Final Four. Can they get it done against Michigan State?
This is the Weekend Tailgate. Brought to you by Golden Cast Iron. C-Dub. Ike Joe. Be Will. Mike G. You are now listening to
The Weekend Tailgate, brought to you by the good folks at Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you can get something for you with our folks over at Golden's Cast Iron. Make sure you head over to goldenscastiron.com/WR. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off of your weights. Code TWR for $65 off of fire pits and Kamado grills. We are here talking a little Auburn basketball. And if you want to be a part of the member group, Green Name Gang, get your membership active right now to our YouTube channel. You see the prices right there, $5.99, $3.99. That's how you can support us and help keep the good work that we are doing out here going. If you'd like to give the membership and you're already part of that membership group, you can do that right now. Somebody gets a free month of membership on you, and I'm sure they will appreciate that from you all. Listen, it is the time for anxiety. It is the time of stress. And if you need some relief, the folks over at Rogue Shop have you covered. America's #1 online dispensary. Use code RAPPORT. Get 15% off over there. Sleep, stress, anxiety, pain relief, all remedied at the Rogue Shop. Make sure you head over there. Tell the folks at the War Rappot that we sent you. C-Dub.
Ike, first and foremost, man, I think this has been a far more enjoyable tournament experience for you. First off, you didn't have to go to Spokane. You were in Lexington. Now you're in the A. How's the A treating you this time around, my guy?
You know, the beautiful thing about being in Atlanta and at a tournament means that I am stationary for the vast majority of the day and I don't have to deal with the Atlanta traffic, but on my commute into the arena and my commute leaving the arena. And I have not had to be out there in the midst of that nonsense. I am a noted hater of Atlanta traffic. And so I'm doing my best to avoid it at all costs. Like, people like, hey, yo, are you in Atlanta? You want to go hang out? No. Absolutely not. Hilarious. That means I have to leave again, and I'm not doing that.
Well, listen, you've been covering Auburn since you've been in town, and Bruce Pearl met with media as well as members of the Auburn men's basketball team. What's kind of the mood with those guys? What's kind of the mentality? What kind of vibe are you getting from those guys?
I mean, everybody is trying to remain loose. I think it's easy to remain loose until the game starts. And you're dealing with a group of guys right now who I think are really just kind of thankful to be in this moment, right? Like, it's been noted, the average age of this Auburn team. And these guys recognize the fleeting nature of these moments for their career, right? Like, as much as they have pro aspirations, they'll never have a collegiate game after this, right? This is the end of the road for some of those guys. I think you can feel that in the way that they're approaching this. Tahad Pettiford said this specifically during that Michigan game. Basically, he said that he told the guys, look, I got an opportunity to come back next year. A lot of you guys don't. So if this is how you want to go out, then all right, cool, right? Like, that's on you. But that's not how I want my season to end. But like, this is the end of the line for some of y'all. And you're not playing like it. So the freshmen on the team challenged these seniors to say, if that's how you want to go end your season, fine. I can accept that. But I'm finna go out here and I'm going to bust my butt. And he went out there at halftime of that game with about 10 minutes left on the clock and was out there shooting by himself.
Crazy. Just went crazy.
I'm saying, but this is before during halftime. He was just out there shooting by himself. The rest of the team still back in the locker room. He left. He was like, if that's how y'all want to do it, fine. I'm finna go out here and shoot around. And he was out there by himself for like 3 minutes shooting around with nobody else. Michigan players hadn't come back out on the court. None of the Auburn, other folks from Auburn left the locker room yet. He's just out there by himself shooting around. And it's almost as if when you saw him in that moment, I was like, oh yeah, he finna go nuts in the second half, bro. Like, Tahad did not come to play today. And he had, and let's be clear, for as much praise as Tahad Pettiford got in that game, he did not play a good first half. His first half was not efficient. He was taking bad shots. He wasn't passing the ball effectively. His defense was just okay, right? This is, Trey Donaldson, too small sign, all that, like all of that was pre locker room. Let me get my stuff together and come back out here to Hot Pettiford. But when he came back out in that second half and he got his first rotation back in, different basketball player.
Yeah.
Different team, really. And I think, they needed him and Denver Jones to figure it out offensively. And then Janai had played a decent game up until that point, but he turned it up even to another level after that. So, yeah, I mean, the mentality, what you asked the question about, the mentality of this team, I think has been encapsulated in that second half versus Michigan, which is, I think that might have been, and we thought it was going to be second half Creighton, but I think that might have been the wake up call. Like, all right, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things I say about Janai he kept Auburn hanging around until Denver and Tahad got going in that game. And to me, this was a classic example of what you have talked about and others talk about when they say March is all about guard play.
For sure.
Because for all of the press about Michigan's Twin Towers versus Janai and Dylan Cardwell, it was Denver Jones and Tahad Pettiford who ended up helping to win that game for Auburn, helping them to pull away.
Yeah.
There were some guys in the game against Michigan who had a rough game. Miles Kelly is one that comes to mind. I think also Chad Baker-Mazara for the good part of that game was struggling. I think he began to affect the game in other ways, and he began to be involved. Like my concern with them is not necessarily they struggled shooting. It just seemed like mentally they were not there. And that was concerning to me with how they play. Like with Miles Kelly, like he couldn't hold on to the ball for nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, you're not even here.
Yeah.
I can tolerate because he does a lot of good things on the defensive end, Ike.
Right.
He does a lot. He was grabbing rebounds, so he was present in the game, but offensively, he had become a liability of sorts.
Auburn. I mean, I don't even know. I didn't look at his minutes in that game, but it was noticeable how few minutes he played in the second half of that game, which is how frequently it seemed like he couldn't hold on to the basketball.
Yeah.
He and Chaney Johnson for long portions of that game felt unplayable. It was just like, I can't put you out there if you're going to keep dropping the ball every time it comes your way. Like multiple fast break opportunities for Miles Kelly, and he just fumbles the ball out of bounds. It was just like, what is going on right now? And then it comes back out in the second half, and he does it again. And I was just like, okay, did this team wake up at the half or not? And it just felt like for whatever reason, I don't know if it was nerves. Now, there were people like asking about like, was the basketball slick? And it seemed as if they were like brand new balls, right? Pause. But they just had a tough time being able to get a grip. And it was evident from more than just, like even on the step back that Tahad hit.
Yeah, he lost it. That's right.
Yeah, he lost a handle on it, and he regathered, and he was able to get it up before the the Michigan player closed out on him. But it was just I don't know what to attribute that to. Was it just because they're playing with these brand new basketballs that were difficult to handle, or was it nerves? Was it a combination of those things? I don't have an answer to that. All I know is it was very sloppy. And it affected some players more than it did others. And Miles seemed to have the most impact. He and Chaney, I think it impacted them astronomically more than anybody else on the court for whatever reason.
In a game like this, I know we're going to get into discussing Michigan State, but someone who stands out to me since we're on this subject, obviously you expect a guy like Miles Kelly to bounce back and play better. He went 1 of 9 for shooting, 1 of 7 from 3-point. He did knock down his 2 free throws towards the end of the game. Obviously, the Auburn had the game in hand, but he did not sink those.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at Chaney Johnson in a game that I think this is his time.
Yeah,
I think this is his time because I think you flip the matchup against Michigan State, and again, we'll talk about Michigan State, but it seems like it's more of a backcourt on backcourt type of matchup, which means obviously with the attention that Janai Broome is likely to get, Chaney Johnson has to get his in this game. What's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, see, they're going to try to frustrate Janai Broome in this game, and I think that they're going to attempt to put him on the free throw line as often as they possibly can, with the nature of how they're going to be putting pressure on the rim and trying to get downhill. And that means that rebounding for him is going to be crucial. His ability to, bother shots at the rim is going to be crucial. And all of those things may lead to foul trouble, right? May lead to him being on the foul line a lot, right? Chaney Johnson's the better free throw shooter of the two. You need Chaney's minutes to be effective, and they need to be mistake-free in terms of bad fouls, rebounds, and then making the tough twos that he's capable of making. That really, when he's at his best, he's the best at on the team. He is the best tough two maker on Auburn's basketball team, just because he can do it with physicality and he can finish with finesse, right? So, and I think physically his matchup is something that he's going to be able to dominate for the vast majority of the game, considering the rotation of bodies. Some of those guys on Michigan State, physically gifted, strong, maybe not as quick, maybe not as high leapers as Chaney. I think Chaney and his athleticism is something that will need to play big dividends in this game, particularly on the rebounds and again on those tough twos.
Let's talk about Chad Baker-Mazara. He finished with 6 points. He shot 2 of 9. Again, he began to affect the game in other areas. I was pleased to see him be engaged. My concern with a lot of these guys is not that they miss shots per se, Ike, but it's the other things about the game that they affect. Chad Baker-Mazara on a fast break,
still don't
had an opportunity to get the ball to Janai Broome, and again, and we thought we left this behind in 2024.
Yeah,
and it was like it's almost like, okay, you're clearly not dialed in.
Yeah,
you're clearly not dialed in. Like what's going on? Talk to me about what you expect from him and your thoughts about him in the Michigan game.
Yeah, I think Chad has a tremendous amount of pride, right? And he's a guy who, when he turns up, you saw it second half versus Dayton before he got hurt.
Yeah,
when Chad makes up in his mind, I'm gonna go get a bucket.
Creighton. I think he said Dayton, Creighton.
I did say my bad. I said Creighton. When he makes up in his mind, I'm gonna go get a bucket. Very few people stopping him from being able to go get that bucket. And so he's going to get his shot opportunities in this game. He's just got to make better decisions. Like that decision on the fast break, like why that pass in that moment? We didn't need that right there. His decision sometimes to take some of the step back threes that he takes in the moments in which he takes them, it's just like, that's not the shot we needed in that moment. But when Chad is like, hey, again, I stress the tough twos. Chad is one of the best tough two makers on this team. Now, he does it with more finesse than Chaney, which is why I say Chaney's the best, because Chaney can deal with the physicality a little bit better. Right. But Chad is a tough two maker. He's got the length and he's got the athleticism to be able to get to that mid-range and make it over the top of a lot of guys. And he has to be able to touch to be able to do that. So if Chad makes up in his mind today, he's going to be a tough two maker, he's going to put a lot of pressure on those Michigan State guards to have to defend him differently. And I think that that's going to be super important. He was my X factor. If you guys watched my preview breakdown that I did, he was the guy who I felt like was going to be an X factor in this game for Auburn offensively.
Some of the things we also can attribute to in the first half against Michigan was it just didn't seem like Auburn was running the offense. And there was a lot of hero ball in that game. Again, what do you make of that? If it was something Michigan was showing them differently, like what in a game like this, because as you alluded, Michigan State has a better defense than Michigan. Mm-hmm. So when you start talking about if Auburn is going to be loose with the ball in this game, it could really be catastrophic for Auburn. What were some things that you saw in that game to where obviously Auburn needs to get into its offensive sets, and obviously Michigan State is going to have something to say about that, but how can Auburn avoid a lot of this hero ball that we've seen lead to kind of slow starts?
Yeah, I think in the game versus Michigan did show some different things defensively than what Auburn probably prepped for. So it took them some time to adjust to some of that. They did not play as heavy a drop coverage, right? It was still a drop, but they were Creighton level drop coverage in their game versus Texas A&M, where the big was at the, just below the free throw line a lot. They weren't playing that level of drop coverage versus Auburn. They actually had them extended up. So if Auburn is starting, just beyond the 3-point line, the big is just inside the 3-point line as opposed to drop back into the paint.
Do you think? Sorry to cut you off. Do you think that was a lot of the fact that they actually respected Auburn's offense versus A&M's to a degree?
I do. I do think that is a by nature of, okay, these guys are better shooters, so we need to be able to close out a little bit more effectively. I also think that, in that game, they felt as if they had the advantage on the interior. In some instances, they wanted to play inside out, and Michigan was doing a good job of keeping that a thing where Auburn wasn't able to get very good post-entry passes. And you actually saw more of the scoring for Auburn come off of second chance than it did off of primary action that they were doing for Janai Broome in the paint. So I think, some of the things that they thought that they were going to be able to get, they didn't get those looks early, and then they made the adjustments. That's one good thing about this coaching staff is they make adjustments to how they were going to do some stuff. They did some more cross screen stuff for Janai to get him in motion to catch the ball rather than on the block in the middle of the paint. And that seemed to be effective for getting him touches. So a lot of what they did was a little different than what they had been doing, and that made it very difficult for Auburn to get into a flow offensively at points.
What do you foresee in terms of what Michigan State? You did a bit of a breakdown on them, guys. Go check that out after this live is over. Ike kind of talked briefly about some of the things he expects to see in this matchup. How do you think Michigan State will attack Auburn in terms of defensively and what they'll try to do?
I think they're just going to stay to their principles, and a lot of their principles is they're going to switch a lot of stuff, right? So they're going to make it difficult for guards to even get catches. They're probably going to press up on those guards to make it difficult for them to get into their action and difficult for the post entry. But I don't think that you're going to see a heavy amount of double teams on Janai Broome. I think you're just going to be very physical with him and force him to finish through contact and finish over the top of, their wall up and make him finish over the top of guys. So that's going to be the big thing for Janai is his ability to finish at the rim through physicality is going to be important in this game. He needs to just embrace that. You're not going to get all the whistles today. Go finish. Go through a guy's chest and finish. I think Michigan's going to see if he can do that. Michigan State, going to see if he can do that a lot in this game.
Miles Kelly, I think we talked about him a little bit briefly. What do you expect from him today?
I think he's going to have a better shooting performance today. I think that he settles in, and he is one of the better. When I talk about tough two makers, he's one of the better tough three makers on this team, right? Like he doesn't need a lot of daylight to get the shot off. And I think, some of the action that they're going to run for him, he's going to get opportunities to get those shots up today. And he's going to do a much better job, in my opinion, of knocking those shots down. I expect multiple threes to come from Miles Kelly. What I don't want to see is him shoot 3 of 10, right? But I'd like to see him do, 3 or 4 of 7 or 8. Like I don't mind that kind of line. But I do think that he's going to have a better performance today, just because I think he's got an opportunity to see, the feel of the game a little bit more. And he's going to be one of those guys, again, that I think Auburn is going to they need to loosen up the paint a little bit to get better shots for Janai. I think what I expect to see early in this game is a set to try to get Miles Kelly a shot. Just let him get a shot up on the rim and see how he's feeling with it. I expect to see an early opportunity for Miles Kelly in this game. They might draw something up. One of the first couple possessions will be an intentional play to try to get Miles Kelly a shot.
And two, again, one of the things, again, he was having a difficult time handling the ball, but Miles knows how to get to the basket as well. Like he knows how to create something for himself. So if he's able to do that today, that's going to be very big for him in terms of getting him going. Like when he can get those easier shots. Usually we know what he's like when he starts hitting threes back to back. It's watch out. And I think he's due for another big game. He's struggled since the Alabama State game. So he's
I don't think he erupts for like 6 or 7 threes in this one, but I do expect 2 or 3 to get knocked down for Miles Kelly today.
Good deal. Let's get to some of you guys' comments here. Not a lot that I've seen so far. Alamo Tiger grad. So you definitely have a lot vested on the outcome in this game, I'm assuming. He says, do you think the 10 p.m. tip was a factor in sloppiness of play?
I mean, I guess, having to wait around all day could be something that impacts. I'm actually glad this game is earlier for a lot of reasons, because I get to hit the road a little bit earlier. Won't have to be here past midnight again. But yeah, I think that could be, a thing. I think it's really was just about a lot of nerves, a lot of anxiousness, and maybe second game in the same space. You don't have the travel involved and all that kind of stuff. Maybe they'll just get out of that lax feeling a little bit in this one.
All right. Habersham Jim says this team must be physically and mentally tough today. I agree with that.
I mean, listen, that's what this time of year is about physical and mental toughness, and the mental portion of that being probably the superior portion of that. If you're playing smart and you're not just making, because here's the thing, and I've said this many times, is that, or I said this a lot about the game versus Michigan in particular when I was talking to people around here about it, is that and I said it on Twitter multiple times, the vast majority of those 15 turnovers that Auburn had, completely unforced. Right. Michigan didn't do something and it's like, oh, that's a really great defensive play. Right. They were lazy passes. They were fumbles of the passes that were uncontested. They were like, it was a lot of very unforced stuff. And so if you just cut out the unforced turnovers, which, Auburn has had a tendency in games to do, then you're in a much better place. So it's really going to be about just mental sharpness and then not being so cautious that you're paralyzed, right? And so you just got to find a way to be loose, but not so loose that you're not playing effectively. And so they've got to find a way to toe that line and come out and just hoop.
The saving grace in Auburn in that game, I pointed this out in the post game, was that Michigan was turning the ball over as well. Like they were keeping up with Auburn in terms of turnovers. Yeah. In a game like this, where Michigan State is a little bit more careful with the ball than Michigan, they can make you pay for that, right? So Michigan wasn't able to capitalize off of Auburn turning the ball over because they were doing the same when they got back down the court. You don't want
valuing the ball. That's something Coach Pearl has talked about. Like, listen, value the possession, man, because you don't know how many of those you're going to get. So make this one count.
Absolutely. Daryl says, War Damn Eagle, Michigan State about to play a game of pick your poison with our backcourt. Let's get it. Need that revenge game versus Florida. Definitely. You and I talked about this. Quietly, Florida has not looked as invincible as they have had going into the tournament. I think they look very scary how they went through the SEC tournament, but they've looked very mortal going against Texas Tech in the primary. I forget who they played before that.
If you hadn't asked me right then, I'd have been able to say it with like
people in the chat probably right off my tongue. But UConn,
there it is. Yeah,
UConn, as well as Texas Tech. Like they've given them, and Texas Tech. My God, if you just hit your free throws, that's probably a different game. If you just hit
Texas Tech, basically was like, win. We've had fun. We've had fun. I'm going back to Texas anyway, right? What do I need the trip to the to San Antonio for?
We won the game for 38 minutes. Like, who needs these last two, right?
Yeah, I mean, 2 minutes. What could go wrong?
Yeah, but listen, the thing here is that, again, we know I expect Auburn to do what it takes to get, because I think that's what's going to motivate them. They know they're going to see the Final Four could be a potential revenge tour, right? Because two of the teams in the Final Four, potentially three, depending on what Tennessee does, are teams that have beaten you at some point. Yeah. So it could be a revenge tour at some point. And even with Houston, if Houston gets in, they're gonna have revenge on their mind.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, if Tennessee finds a way to beat Houston and you find a way to beat Michigan State, you'll have to beat three teams that already have a win over you this season to get to your final destination, which is the title.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Some more of your comments here. TK says, Miles Kelly won't be cold twice at this level. I have confidence he's due. I agree he's due. I agree he's definitely due for a breakout game.
Yeah.
Ephesians 2 verses 8 and 9 says, please no Janai threes, like none at all.
Listen, just go ahead and be prepared to be upset. That's not happening, that he's taking 0 threes in this game.
Yeah, he
Just
takes
not
one
gonna
every
not gonna be
game.
a thing.
He takes at least
Yeah.
one every game. Yeah, I would appreciate if he doesn't take like 4 or 5 if he's not hitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's gonna take 1, 2,
For sure.
probably 3.
Yeah, 2 to 3.
Yeah.
Mario Netto says, "Man, I'm so proud of these boys, man. This has been some of the best fun I've had in a minute. It's been a fun year for Auburn basketball. I think Auburn has surpassed that floor of what people would deem to be kind of a failure of a season, right? And again, that can be harsh depending on how far Auburn advances, but Auburn has got to the Elite Eight with a chance to get into the Final Four, and they have Final Four in their minds. It has been exciting to see this team win and go through the tournament and actually stay on par to reach their goals. So I've been enjoying it as well." Ephesians 2 verses 8 and 9 says, "False Florida is still scary. They got a team full of straight killers in crunch time." Didn't say that they weren't good.
I was about to say I don't know that the statement was ever made that they weren't still scary. It's just that they look human.
They look human now.
There are some very scary humans out there. They just looked invincible prior to those last couple of games, and they still won them, right? So it's like nobody's taking anything from them, but they've looked very like, oh, okay, well, this team does have a few. There's some chinks in armor out there.
They looked unbeatable the way they just took apart Bama, the way they took apart Tennessee, the way they like teams that have beaten us. They dismantled those teams, and they're coming down to the crunch time against other teams, and it's been interesting to see. But yes, Florida is in the Final Four for a reason. We respect that, as expected too. I expected them to get this far. So
yeah, listen, they were the team who I thought was the best team in the country going into this tournament, and they haven't lost yet. So somebody got to beat them before that's not the case.
Stephen Keel says Duke is the best team, like I said at the beginning of the tournament.
Okay, sure. You have every right to that opinion, Stephen. I don't know. Well, again, I don't think that Duke was the best team at the beginning of this tournament. I still think that Florida's the best team at the beginning of this because Duke doesn't look immortal either. They look flawed in a lot of ways. But nobody ever said Duke wasn't good. They said that their conference was crap, which it is. Doesn't mean Duke's not good. The ACC is still a pile of dog crap.
I've been impressed. What I will say this about Duke, I've been impressed with Duke that they have looked this strong, considering coming out of a weak conference. Like I don't expect for them to get punched in the mouth a few times in this tournament, and they have been doing a lot of the punching against a lot of teams. So I will give them a lot of credit for that.
Duke is a team that is truly, they can switch everything, right? Like the only guy on that team is Malawach, who I wouldn't really want to get caught on a switch out top with someone. But outside of that, and then if Malik Brown is able to play, which he played a little bit in this game last night, if he's able to play, then they get that switchability a little bit more. So they're a very good team. I mean, they're a team full of freaking McDonald's All-Americans. Who doesn't think Duke is going to be good?
Right.
Like, how can you be terrible and you have 7 or 8 of the top 50 players every year? You better be.
Right. Did you start this one, Ike?
Yeah, he was talking about Pat Adams.
Oh, yeah. I don't see him reffing the Tennessee game, so more than likely we do have Pat.
Listen, he wasn't going to fly across the country from they're going to keep him on this site to ref. So either he is reffing or the crew, because I don't think it's the same crew that reffed both games. I wasn't paying attention to the Ole Miss and Michigan State game because I don't think they would do that where they have the same refs doing both games, but maybe they did. I don't know. But they definitely weren't flying him across the country to go ref at another site. So he was part of this regional thing. So he may be reffing tonight. Yeah.
Yeah. Fun times. All right. I think we're at a good place. We're going to get into talking about Michigan and pointing out some things about them. But before we do, guys, if you've been enjoying this conversation, please like, share, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to pause, pay some bills, and return to talk about more in depth about the upcoming matchup with Michigan State.
This edition of the War Rapport is brought to you by our generous sponsors. The Opelika Rage Room in Opelika, Alabama. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Call or text 334-777-6688 to set up a session today, or check them out online at opelikaRageRoom.com. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com.
Yes, indeed. Thank you to sponsors of the War Report. Thank you to those of you who have chosen to be members of the Green Name Gang. We appreciate y'all so much. You can be a part of that, get membership content, a lot of great breakdowns. Now, I didn't get a chance to get you guys Michigan State breakdowns like I thought I would, but if Auburn wins this game, I got a whole week to preview the Final Four matchup. So make sure you get in line with that. And we are still doing our Super Chat challenge. So if you want to Super Chat, and, you know, because if Auburn wins again, we got to do travel plans to San Antonio. So make sure that you help us defray those costs a little bit as well. So get in there on the Green Name, Super Chat, all of that kind of stuff. It helps us out a lot. Membership gifting, you can get a membership to the War Report and gift that to somebody else, and they will get a free month of membership on you. Before the game starts, maybe you want to lock in some fantasy stuff. Underdog Fantasy is our sponsor for that. New customers deposit and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you use code RAPPORT. There's different restrictions that apply to different states, so make sure that you know all of the different rules for where you are. But make sure you lock in at underdogfantasy.com. Use code RAPPORT. That will get you up to $1,000 in bonus cash from them.
All right. Ike, Michigan State, pretty good team. They won 30 games on the season, only lost 6 times. I mean, this has been a pretty talented team. They're a 2 seed for a reason. They won the Big Ten regular season championship. Lost in the semifinal. A lot of similarities to Auburn. What do you make of this Michigan State Spartans team? And what are some of the things that concern you about them?
Tough defensive team that is absolutely, they're one of the best defensive rebounding teams in the country, right? Like, they finish possessions, meaning we're going to play good defense, we're going to force you into a tough shot, and we're going to finish it with a rebound. That is how they play. They secure possessions, they finish possessions, and then when they get the ball, they want to get out and they want to run, right? And so they want to slow you down on the offensive end, and they want to push pace on their offensive side, right? And so it's going to be incumbent on Auburn to just run their offense. And, you know, we talked about what a lot of people have said is hero ball and one-on-one stuff. That's not going to work versus Michigan State. They're too sound defensively. You're going to have to play a game. Now, the one-on-one matchups that will work are going to be on the interior, because I do think that Auburn has the edge there on post scoring. Again, they're going to be physical, but they have the better post scorers in that regard. But out top, they're going to force you into tough shots, and you either have to be a tough shot maker or you have to create easy shot opportunities. So Auburn needs to be able to do both of those in that game.
For Michigan State, couple of people who play really well in them from a scoring standpoint. Jace Richardson, who is a freshman, had 20 points. Their leading scorer, Jaden Akins, had 13. And Cohen Carr in the front court had 15 points. So they got some guys who can get buckets. And it looks like one of the things that people talked about is it's going to be kind of a strength on strength in terms of the backcourt. Kind of what do you foresee with Auburn in terms of how the backcourts match up and who you think has the edge there?
I mean, I would give the edge in depth to Michigan State there, but Auburn has the better scorers overall in the backcourt, I believe. I believe that that Michigan State team they are shot makers and they create good shots in the half court for themselves. But Auburn has the better, just pure scorers, right? Like they have more guys who you can say, hey, here's the ball, clear it out, go get a bucket, right? But Michigan State, in their discipline and their ability to just knock down shots when they get open opportunities, I think they're really good at that. And they play well as a unit. So I give the collective edge to Michigan State, but like point for point, it probably is going to be Auburn's guys. But again, I don't think you can turn this into it's my turn, give me the ball kind of thing against them.
How I mean, he's always critical in every game, but what do you think? Who do you think Denver Jones will be? Obviously, Auburn switches everything, but who do you expect Denver Jones to mainly be guarding in this game or trying to take away?
Probably going to be Jace Richardson. Yeah,
Okay.
he's kind of the initiator for a lot of their stuff, so he likely will get that assignment.
Also, too, is we saw a big game from Tahad Pettiford. How do you think he responds after that emotional game, that huge game that he had 2 nights ago against Michigan?
Man, I think this is just kind of his kind of stuff, man. Like I think he's just kind of built for these kind of moments. And I think he's going to respond really well. You know, one of the things they talked about in the pregame press conference with Michigan specifically was how much Jace Richardson and Tahad Pettiford played AAU ball together, right? And so they're familiar with one another, both left-handed basketball players, both of them, you know, just kind of really tough-minded, bucket-getting kind of guards. And so I expect that he embraces this challenge similarly to how he embraced the challenge when Auburn played North Carolina, right? And Elliot Cadeau was a guy who he grew up playing ball with, and he just he embraces that kind of stuff. Now, Jace is 6'3", you know, Tahad Pettiford is giving up a few inches there, but I don't think that matters to him very much.
In your opinion, for me, I wanted this matchup, even though Michigan State's a really good team. There's a part of me that did not want to play Ole Miss for a fourth time in this season. Third time Auburn played them. The best Ole Miss have played Auburn up to that point. SEC tournament, Auburn won. I think it was under 10. It was a close game throughout. But your thoughts about how Michigan State fared against Ole Miss, and what were some things that you saw out of that matchup with Ole Miss? Because Ole Miss, that's another example of a team that played amazing for the duration of the game and just collapsed at the end. What were some things that you saw that Ole Miss did that Auburn could potentially replicate?
Yeah, I think what they did well in that Ole Miss game was just doing all of the things that Auburn is going to do naturally well, which is they're switching a lot of the action out front and they're forcing Michigan State to use a lot of clock, right? They were making them, they're slowing the possessions down essentially. It's like you're not getting as many possessions in the game as you want to, and you're not getting up and down the floor like you wanted to. They took care of the ball for the most part, right? Like, so they just weren't allowing what fuels Michigan State's tempo to be effective. And that happens when you make shots and you don't turn the ball over. So they did a really good job of just making shots and not turning the ball over a bunch. Where they faltered late in that game, though, is defensively. They started having breakdowns in their communication, and their switching just wasn't as effective as it was early in the game. Because early in the game, they kind of had Michigan State a little flustered, and they were forcing them into bad shots and turnovers and just being really effective at being disruptive. But eventually it got to a place where that disruption became less and less and less, and it became like a trading baskets kind of thing. And then late in the game, Ole Miss just some kind of silly, unforced stuff and some bad shots. And Michigan State pulls it out late.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that people have given Auburn a lot of credit for in terms of disrupting backcourts is their ability to switch. Obviously, we're going to see mismatches in this game where Auburn's bigs are on the perimeter defending. How do you, I mean, these guys have been stellar, whether it's been especially Dylan Cardwell and Chaney Johnson, and even Janai to a lesser extent. How do you think those guys will do defending the perimeter against Michigan State? And are there anything that gets exposed in the interior that Michigan State could expose from a mismatch standpoint?
On the interior, I just don't know that there's a lot that they can do one-on-one versus Janai Broome if he's making those tough shots. But where they're going to have to, what he's going to have to do that he has done well so far in this tournament, to his credit, people, get on him about, whether or not he looks motivated and all this kind of stuff and, missing some shots. He's been stellar on the boards. He has been really good for Auburn rebounding the basketball. He's going to need to put in that kind of performance again, rebounding the ball. So he's done a great job of that. He's going to need that same kind of effort on the glass in this game.
what kind of production are you expecting from a guy like a Chaney Johnson? We talked about him a little earlier in the show, and I said he's going to have to be an X factor. He's going to have to be someone. I think we need close to a double and like 7-8 boards from a Chaney Johnson to really make his presence felt in this game. Assuming that Michigan State's game plan is to try to neutralize Janai Broome in some way.
Yeah. I mean, I've said this repeatedly during this tournament. Chaney needs to have 7+ boards in the game. He just does. Like, he needs to be able to utilize all of that God-given athleticism that he has to compete for rebounds, keep himself available on the floor without getting into foul trouble, and be able to be a tough two maker. But I think 7 boards plus anything above 7 boards is going to be what he needs to be focusing on, because those are possessions, right? When you're getting those rebounds, those become additional possessions for your team, whether they're offensive rebounds or closing out a possession defensively with the defensive board. Chaney's got to show up in that way, because he's going to have matchups that I think that physically, athletically, he should be able to dominate. And so he needs to make that a priority for himself.
All right, what happens, man? What do you think happens in this game?
Listen, I'm always going to fall on the side of Boog, because that's just how I'm built. I'm built to Boog, baby. So
that's a shirt. That's a shirt.
Yeah, it is. That you're right. Built to Boog is my.
That's a shirt. I like that.
It might be something I need to cook up for y'all. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think that ultimately, I've said this all season. Teams have to play excellently to beat this Auburn team. Excellently. Right? Like, you can't bring a B effort and get a dub against Auburn unless Auburn is bringing their C effort. And Auburn rarely brings their C effort. They might bring you a B minus.
40 minutes. For 40 minutes, for sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The sum total of the game. Then they might bring you a B minus, but they're not bringing you. So you have to play stellar. I think Auburn's ready to give you at least 30 minutes of an A effort today, and they're going to get the dub. Listen, man, I've already been looking at flights to San Antonio. Don't make my Googling in vain. Don't let my Google be in vain. But yeah, man. So I'm looking forward to a really good game, and I'm hoping we're all smiles at the end of it. But I'm always gonna ride with my boys, because I think that Auburn is a good enough team to get this win. Michigan State is absolutely a good team, right? This is not a commentary on whether or not I think Michigan State can beat Auburn. It's about whether or not Auburn is going to beat Auburn today, and if they don't do that, then they should get the win.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to lean Auburn again. I felt good about this game just from a matchup standpoint, in terms of Auburn's size versus Michigan size. Pause. In terms of just what Janai and can do in the paint, and even our guards are. I think our guards are taller than theirs.
On average, I think they might have taller on average. I was actually just looking at their size here. So, Jeremy Fears, who was one of the point guards, 6'2", so a little shorter than what Denver Jones would be. Trey Holloman, 6'2", Jace Richardson, 6'3", Adkins is 6'4". Cohen, I don't think Ting plays a lot. Let me make sure. He averages. Now, Ting doesn't play very much. I don't remember hearing his name a lot during the games that I watch. Cohen Carr would be the next guy. He's 6'5", so that's when you start to get it a little bit taller. But again, you're talking about 6'5" versus a 6'6" Miles Kelly. Chad Baker-Mazara, 6'7". So they have a lot of bigger, like when you talk about Tahad Pettiford versus some of those guys, he outsizes them. So I think by average, maybe they have average height advantage there, but they play a lot of big wing players, right? So when you're talking about minutes per game, you'll get into Kohler, who here is listed as a forward, and he is 6'9", right? So that's a Chaney Johnson type of matchup physically. I think Chaney Johnson should win that, but Kohler's a really solid player. Carson Cooper would be the next guy in their rotation that gets a decent amount of minutes. He's 6'11", right? So that's going to be a big for them. And then Fiddler, that's the other guy I was looking for. Let me see what his height is. Fiddler is where is he on this list? 6'7", right? So, I mean, by and large, Auburn actually matches up size-wise, height-wise really well with Michigan State. And they've even got some advantages, but particularly on the interior, some of their taller players don't get a lot of minutes. But here's the thing. Tom Izzo's not afraid to throw him out there and just throw additional bodies and say, all right, cool, go use a couple of fouls and make Janai earn it from the free throw line, which he's got to make freaking free throws in this game. Got to. So, yeah. Yeah, from a size standpoint, I think it's a fairly even matchup. I'm not worried about Tahai Pettiford because he's shorter than a lot of people he plays against. That dude has no fear. It doesn't matter to him. So it's going to be good.
Foul trouble. Obviously, that's going to be a concern. You talked about free throws, another concern, but foul trouble. It didn't surprise me that Auburn found himself in foul trouble with Janai. Janai actually has done a good job of staying out of foul trouble throughout the year.
Let's just say this though. I don't think that, and somebody made a comment about, Michigan's fans complaining about Pat Adams and that was not a very well officiated game. It just wasn't. By and large, a lot of the foul calls that happened were just, it was
But those are stuff we've been seeing all season in the SEC. Some of those types of calls.
Yeah, for sure. And it was a renaissance of that because it hadn't been that way in the first two rounds. It seemed like they were allowing some physicality. They were allowing guys to play a little bit more, push them off the line when they're trying to get downhill type of stuff. And they were just again, I don't have a problem with calls being close and they're calling touch fouls, that kind of stuff. I just want it to be consistent. And that's been my biggest issue with some of these SEC officiated games. It's just, it doesn't feel consistent. It feels as if on this play, this is the call. And then you can go forward literally 2 plays in that exact same thing not be called. And it's like, but wasn't that just a foul a minute ago?
Right.
And I just don't like how easily you can get into foul trouble for doing nothing. Like some of those fouls that Chaney Johnson got, I was like, bro, he didn't do anything. Chad literally got 2 foul calls for just being in the area of stuff happening. I was just like, what did he do? What was the actual?
I thought Janai Broom's 4th foul. I thought that was ticky-tack.
Terrible call. The one time where Chaney caught the ball, and then they said he stepped out of bounds. Didn't do it. His foot was never out of bounds. It was close. It was a bad call. And I'm just like, bro, and then that's not all on Pat Adams. The entire crew had some terrible calls.
Yes.
So I'm just like, bro, like, just be consistent. Like, that's all that anybody is asking for. If you're a coach, that's all I ask for. You set the parameters for how physical we're going to allow to be in this game. And if I bring that level of physicality on this next play, don't call a foul on me. And this is going to be a physical game for sure. So how they decide to referee this game is going to impact this game a lot more than people want to see.
Yeah. Let's get to some of you guys' comments. Ike and I are in agreement that Auburn pulls it out. We'll see what happens here. Brad Browning says, boy, Michigan fans and alums are saying they got cheated by Pat Adams. That's what you was referring to.
And again, to your point, though, I think Auburn has been more used to it, not just the fans, but the players. And so they were just like, bro, we've been going through this for a full SEC season. Welcome to our party. So they were able to deal with it, I think, a little bit better than Michigan and their fans were.
I think I heard Daryl Dappers talk about that. He was saying that Pat Adams, in a weird way, helped Auburn because, again, this was something that was new for Michigan. So they obviously, if you've been used to being able to play a physical game and now you're getting called for being physical, it can kind of throw you off of your game. And so that was kind of his argument there. So, yeah, in a weird way, you can see how that could benefit a team that's used to that all season long.
Yeah.
James Barnett says that, Ike, how much better is Michigan State versus Michigan, in your opinion?
Michigan State's easily the better team to me. So I don't think it's even very close. I mean, when you look at the analytics, this is something I was looking at yesterday. Offensively, Michigan is a better team than Michigan. And I was looking at statistics just during the month of March. So, like, how are they playing most recently? So Michigan has a better offense by the stats, by the analytics than Michigan State does. But Michigan State's defense is far superior. Like, it's not even close. So there's going to be a trade-off there where I think that Auburn defensively will have opportunities to do some stuff. We looked at this before we got on here, and this was not necessarily about Michigan versus Michigan State, but just in that game versus Ole Miss, I looked at the disparity in shot attempts, and Ole Miss took 64 shots in that game to Michigan State's 48. So Ole Miss just wasn't very efficient offensively. They got plenty of opportunities. They just didn't take advantage of those opportunities. Hear me when I say this. If the shot disparity in this game, again, free throws aside, but if just on the court shot disparity, you're getting almost 20 more attempts for Auburn than you are Michigan State, Auburn's probably beating them to death.
They're running away.
They're just, I don't think Ole Miss is nearly as efficient in offense as Auburn is. If Auburn's getting that many shot attempts, then they're probably winning this game fairly easily, unless, again, free throw line becomes a huge disparity, which in these last two games, Michigan State has doubled the amount of free throw attempts as their opponent. So they've been getting to the line twice as often as their opponent has. In that game, specifically versus Ole Miss, the free throw attempts
were knocking them down too. They were 19-22 against Ole Miss.
Yeah, so Ole Miss took 10, Michigan State took 22, right? So, right, they had 19 makes and Ole Miss only had 10 attempts. So if they're going to have that level of disparity at the free throw line, then that's going to close that gap significantly as well. So Auburn's got to do a good job of defending without fouling and sending them to the free throw line.
Yeah, I'm looking real quick, Ike. Yeah, it almost sounds like they can get to the line really well. That is a concern.
That's one of the things that they do best in the country. When you look at the analytics for Michigan State, their free throw rates again, I'm just looking at on the season, they are top 50 in the country at getting to the free throw line. If you look at that versus top 50 opponents, let me look at that statistic here really quickly.
Yeah, it's scary how it's scary how at the rate they're getting to the free throw line.
Let me see, versus top 50 opponents. So in the best versus the best competition that they've had this season, they're still top 50 in the country at being able to get to the free throw line. So they do a really good job of, in quad one this year, they're 13-4, right? Like, so this is a team that it's good. It's a very good basketball team. And the biggest thing is going to be, can Auburn play their tough physical brand of defense, particularly on the exterior, and still get dubs? And we'll see. We'll see.
Riley Mobley asked, could we see a Janai Dillon Cheney in a series tonight? I guess see them on. Unlikely. Just because, again, I think they're going to want to spread those fouls out. And I don't know that you gain an advantage by having Cheney be your 3-man, right? You're going to get less offense, but you're going to get Simo out there more than likely to try to bring that physicality at the wing, rather than bring Cheney in there. I doubt that they try to go big like that because, again, Michigan State is a more perimeter-oriented team, and I don't think I want Cheney chasing guys around out there at the three-point line. I'd rather have Simo in there doing that. 6'7" guy, 6'6", 6'7" guy. I'd rather have him out there to be physical and do that than I would Cheney, because you need him on the interior, and you're not going to play Janai or Dillon out top. So, yeah, it's a very unlikely scenario unless foul trouble injuries precipitate that. Yeah, you want to protect those guys from a foul standpoint anyway, and you're begging Cheney to pick up fouls by asking him to play the 3 in that regard. Yeah. So you got to protect him. Demario Nettle says, do you think we see a better game from Chad Baker-Mazara?
I do think Chad plays a better game. Again, he's one of my X factors for this game. I and more so because I need to see him do it. So yes.
Yeah. Aditz says, I've been looking at a ticket for the Final Four. They are expensive.
Yeah, as expected. This is the pinnacle of college basketball. It's going to be a lot of money, and you're ending up with a lot of teams that they expected to be there. So there's some people who, like, in advance have purchased tickets and they're not giving them up at this point in time. And then there's some teams who thought they were going to be there and they're reselling them joints. So
yeah. Tennessee is getting mopped right now.
25-8.
Yeah, that's Houston came to play. You also had thoughts about another coach whose season ended yesterday, who made some comments. I don't know if you wanted to jump in there.
I'm gonna hold off. I need to see what we do tonight before I go in on that. But I do have quite a bit to say on that subject. Even if we lose, I'm gonna still talk my junk afterwards. But I'm just saying, if we win, the amount of junk I'm gonna talk is gonna go up a whole other level.
Yeah, as you should. Ike, if you don't have anything else, man, let's get out of here and tell the people what they could do.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys can support us. First, you can support the people who make the show possible today. goldinscastiron.com/WR. Code get your weight up for 15% off of weights. Code TBWR for $65 off of Kamado Grills. You can go ahead and get a membership and get that Green Name Gang activation going. We appreciate that. If you are Green Name Gang, you can gift a membership to somebody else. And then you can make sure that you support the rest of the network. Post game, we ain't talked about it, but I'm assuming you're going to be on the post game today. Might get joined by some of the guys on the network's College Loop, Up Tempo, Just a Sec podcast, and we are the Auburn Express out there on podcast.
For sure. Well, y'all, listen, we appreciate y'all being with us today. I know you're gearing up and getting ready for the game that's supposed to tip off in another 2 hours or so. But do us a favor and share this video, like and subscribe to the channel. Also, you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, X at the War Rappot. You can find us on TikTok at TW Rapport. That's it. We're signing off for now. But yes, as Ike mentioned, I will definitely
quick super chat from Mercy before we get out of here. Hope we win so we can shut the Michigan State fans that have been talking a lot of. I haven't encountered any yet that have been talking. So hey, that's what's up. Listen now. Auburn fans talking jump. That's what we're here for. We're here for the junk talk. Let it happen. Let it fly, baby.
Some of the best trash talking is after a game when we win. So if Auburn wins, Auburn will be insufferable, and I'm here for all of it. So hopefully they are able to pull out the dub tonight. We will see. But enjoy the game tonight. Hopefully we're talking about an Auburn win in a few hours. I will be there in the post game to talk all about it. Enjoy. Where you go?